everyone to our post-collection safety webinar. We're excited to have you here with us today to discuss the important issue of safety in post-collection. By planning to be proactive every day, the industry can mitigate those safety issues that affect workers on a constant basis. Our goal is to bring people together to address safety issues that include not only collection, but post-collection safety as well. We have a great lineup for you today with discussions on lockout, tagout, and confined spaces, fire safety, landfill safety, and what SWANA is doing in the safety space with their programs and events. Thank you to all of today's speakers. To read their full bios, please visit the link below. Thank you to our today's sponsors. First off, our platinum sponsor, Vizia, and our gold sponsors, Meridian Waste and Waste and Recycling Workers Week. Let's get started. First up is Will Flower, speaking on lockout, tagout, and confined spaces. He's had a 42-year career in the waste and recycling industry, working for the EPA, and more than 10 years at WM and Republic. Most recently, he worked for Winter Brothers on Long Island, New York, and he is a lifetime member of SWANA and also serves on our editorial board. Will, take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Angelina. And hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Special thanks to Waste Advantage Magazine for their efforts to ensure that safety remains top of mind in the waste industry, not just with their publication, but also with this safety webinar. I just pulled up my today we're going to be talking about one of the most, hang on just a sec. Just checking to make sure we're okay. Does everybody hear me okay? Angelina, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. And do you see my slides?
Not yet.
Okay. Let me put them back up there for us. Sorry about that. Okay. How about now? You're good?
Let's see. We are good.
Okay, very good. Thanks so much, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most dangerous situations that you may ever face on the job, and that is working in confined spaces. In the waste and recycling area, confined spaces truly are everywhere. They can be they can be at transfer stations, they can be at recycling facilities, they can include tanks, compactors, hoppers, vaults, and pits. Let's start with a clear definition of what we mean by confined spaces. And we have to remember that the risk of serious injury or death without proper procedures can in fact occur. So the definition of a confined space is a space that is large enough to enter and work in. It would have limited entry and exit. And this is most important. It's not designed for continuous occupancy. There's a second criteria associated with confined space. And that's where OSHA takes this a step further by classifying many of these spaces as, quote, permit required confined spaces. And a permit required confined space is one that contains or has the potential to contain a serious hazard. That could include toxic gases, a lack of oxygen, flammable materials, or even the risk of being engulfed by loose materials. And let's talk about each one of those risks. For example, there could be an atmospheric hazard, anything where it could be where oxygen levels are lower than 19.5% in the atmosphere, which of course could make you dizzy, confused, unconscious, and depending on how low those oxygen levels get, even face potential severe injury, including death. There could also be toxic gases like methane or hydrogen sulfide that could build out, and certainly carbon monoxide, where you may not even realize it. And remember that certain gases like methane are not only toxic, they could also be explosive. There could also be physical hazards, such as machinery that hasn't been properly locked out or tagged out for the moving parts, or the sudden release of materials that could bury or trap a worker. And there could also be environmental hazards. Um, and that can include poor lighting, tight spaces, and difficulty exiting, making it very, very difficult if a rescue had to occur. Um, these are not risks that we could afford to take lightly, and that's why OSHA has very strict requirements when it comes to protecting workers in confined spaces. So how do we address and comply with regulations involving confined space? The first is to identify where are those confined spaces at your work site. And as safety professionals, someone is probably going through the site on a regular basis to identify all potential hazards, and they need to also identify confined spaces. Of course, that the next is to identify places where the permit system is necessary, which again would be permit required, where there's additional hazards that need to be addressed. And no one should ever enter a permit required confined space without completing and signing an entry permit. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, because the permit does confirm that there are hazards that have been identified. We listed those earlier, that ventilation has occurred, that air testing has been conducted, and that there is a rescue plan in place ready to go. Big question is, who issues that permit? And it's actually the employer who's responsible for issuing the permit, which includes details about the entry, the hazards, the safety measures, and the emergency plans that are in place. So somebody is actually signing the permit stating that they are in fact taking responsibility, and it's really designed to elevate the concern and the care that has to go into protecting the worker who's going to enter that space. So again, when you think about the purpose of the application, it's to authorize it. Somebody is actually granting permission to enter the workspace. There's pre-entry planning to go through and guide the supervisors and the workers going through a systematic evaluation and preparing to enter the workspace. There's also safety assurances to make sure that the right precautions have been taken, including that everybody's trained, the equipment's in place, and that the rescue plan is in place. And all of this permit documents the fact that all of these steps have taken place. Let me emphasize the importance of atmospheric testing before you get into a confined space. In a confined space, atmospheric testing is non-negotiable. You really have to check before you go in to see, and it does have to be done by a trained professional, somebody who's got experience to and the right equipment to check oxygen levels, check for flammable or explosive gases and toxic substances using the proper equipment. And if the air is unsafe, we just don't enter it, period, because it's got some real risk for someone to get injured. Another key OSHA requirement is lockout tagout, and all equipment connected to the confined space must be isolated and de-energized to prevent any accidental startup. This means that every valve, every switch, every piece of equipment is properly locked out. And we're going to talk a little bit more about lockout tagout in just a few minutes. But first, let's finish our discussion related to confined space by talking about the roles in a confined space environment. So there's really 3-person teams that are involved. It's the entrant, or the person who's going to be doing the work, the attendant, That is someone who's on the outside, who's monitoring the situation, keeping up communication, and will be the one who calls for a rescue if needed. There's also the supervisor, the entry supervisor, and that's the person who has verified that all the safety measures are in place, and the one who has signed the permit. Again, once you sign that permit, you're basically taking responsibility that all these things have been done. No person should ever be alone in a confined space. There should always be a team of folks that are working together. Personal protective equipment, as you would expect, is critical, and OSHA does require that if there is a potential for dangerous atmosphere, that you also wear the right respiratory protective equipment and the use of a retrieval system. Let me leave you with this on confined space. Never enter without training and a permit. Always test the air and ventilate the area. Use proper PPE. Have the rescue plan, and never take shortcuts because the risks are just too great. All right, let's move and focus on lockout tagout for the second half of my presentation this afternoon. Lockout tagout is a fundamental rule of safety when working on vehicles, equipment, processing systems. It is that those trucks, equipment, and waste processing systems all use a tremendous amount of energy, and some of this energy can be can cause serious injury or death, including electrical, hydraulic, pneumatic, gravity, thermal, kinetic, and steam energy. So some of the common examples that we could see that face our employees at a waste and recycling facility include an electrical system, which could remain energized even when the machine is in the off or idle position. A cylinder that's holding up a roll-off box may have stored energy in the form of hydraulic power in the cylinder, or an air tank could be pressurized, which would, of course, have pneumatic pressure. And this stored energy is especially dangerous when it's unexpectedly released. And Department of Labor, who keeps statistics on all of this, states that almost 10% of serious accidents involve a failure to control hazardous energy. To prevent every machine, vehicle, and system must be controlled by a locking out or a disabling of the vehicle or the equipment to prevent the release of energy. This process of disabling a piece of machinery is what we refer to as lockout tagout. Oftentimes you'll see it abbreviated as LOTO. And it does require that the energy sources to be isolated and locked out to make them inoperable before an employee begins work on a piece of equipment. Power sources can be locked out with a padlock, and a tag can be placed on to identify the worker who locked out the machine. And importantly, and this is a key component of the lockout tagout system, is that the worker who installed the lock holds onto the key, puts the key in his or her pocket, and is the only person who can then remove that lock, allowing the machine to be restarted. This lockout tagout procedure prevents the accidental startup of a machine while someone's working on a piece of equipment. Let's see. The standards for lockout tagout are on the screen. Basically, though, it does require that employees must develop and enforce a program for hazardous energy. It also requires that equipment can be in fact locked out that the employee does have to provide approved locks and tags. And very importantly, these should not be locks that have master keys. In other words, everybody shouldn't have the same key. Each lock should have a separate key so that only that employee has the ability to remove his or her lock from the lockout tagout area. The employer must also train employees on the proper procedures for lockout tagout, and they must regularly inspect energy control procedures on an annual basis. When we talk about lockout tagout rules, as I mentioned, one of the main rules is one lock per worker, no master keys. Lock can only be removed by the installer, and if there's multiple workers, there has to be multiple locks. And the tag that goes along with that should be should have on it why, when, and who applied the lock, so that everyone is accountable throughout the while the repairs are being made. Lockout tagout is really a shared responsibility. And again, when we talk about the employer responsibility, they need to write the program, provide the equipment, and enforce compliance. Supervisors are required to ensure that the proper procedures are being followed. They need to be responsible for doing the training and making sure that the people who are working on those systems are trained. And then they need to monitor it and keep their eyes and ears open to ensure that the proper procedures are being followed. And then the employees themselves have a responsibility to ensure that the proper procedures are being followed, and that they are also reporting any problems associated with those procedures or equipment or the process of locking or tagging out. To summarize, hazardous energy is a very dangerous component of the equipment that we work on. However, it can be controlled, and having and following proper lockout tagout procedures will ensure that workers are safe when working on any type of equipment or machinery. So again, thank you for your attention. I want to thank you for your commitment to safety and keeping members of our industry safe. And we're now going to toss it back to Angelina at Waste Advantage.
Great. Thank you, Will, so much. That was excellent, excellent information. Now, next up is our fire safety session with our two speakers today, Eric Frederickson, Vice President of Operations at Call to Recycle, and Jerry Sjogren, Director of Safety for the Recycled Materials Association.
Thank you, Angelina. Are you able to see my screen here?
Yes, I am.
All righty. So really appreciate Angelina and Waste Advantage for putting on today's session. I really appreciate everybody being here. So I'm going to speak with my good friend and colleague Jerry from ReMA on some of the fire safety issues surrounding the collection of batteries, mixed batteries, lithium-ion batteries specifically. So when we think about lithium-ion, when we think about battery collection, oftentimes this is what we think of. We've got a Gaylord where we throw our batteries into it and we accumulate them over time. We've got a big bin. Maybe we think of this, we're sorting them out by chemistry. We've got some lithium-ion batteries. Maybe we have some mixed nickel metal hydride batteries. But really, as we continue to evolve our view of what collecting batteries means, we've also got to take into consideration that this is what battery collection can mean. So we've got a swollen battery there on the left. We've got a battery that's popped the cylindrical casing, and we've got some electrolyte and a jelly roll coming out of it there on the right. We've got some batteries here that have experienced some thermal runaway. We've got a small sealed lead acid battery that's overheated or been subject to external heating and burned there on the left. We have a lithium ion battery that looks like it has some heat damage, maybe not the one that actually went into thermal runaway itself, but now it's been heat exposed. We've got batteries, but it's subject to pretty aggressive physical damage. So when we talk about batteries and battery collection, safety, storage, and compliance and what it means, we really have to start to take an inclusive look of what that means. Because ultimately, if we misclassify, if we mishandle, if we misship, this is what it can mean. I always like to use this picture. If you look here, you can actually see right here, this is a 53-foot dry van. So this is not a flatbed trailer. There was a shell on this extra leased trailer that's been completely blown apart by a deflagration. So an accumulation of explosive gas in a space that overheated and caught fire and blew the hull of the shell clear off the trailer. Battery full of damage, a drum full of lithium ion batteries flew about 50 feet and landed inside a Flying J truck stop. Battery fires on the side of the road, and ultimately kind of a worst case scenario dealing with issues to your people and your property. We've got entire facilities that have been put out of operation due to lithium ion battery fires. So I'm the vice president of operations at Calder Recycle. So for those of you who aren't familiar from us, where we're coming from and why we like to feel that we're in a good position to be able to help move the dialogue forward when it comes to safety and collecting batteries, lithium ion batteries. We've been around for over 30 years. We were founded in 1994 by industry. Calder Recycle partners with over 16,000 free public facing collection sites. Over 90% of the population lives within 10 miles of a Calder Recycle collection point. We originally founded to operate extended producer responsibility compliance solutions for manufacturers in regulated jurisdictions. So increasingly there are states and populations that have laws that require that manufacturers fund nonprofits to run battery recycling programs like at Calder Recycle. We also have a lot of services in safety, transportation, and logistics. We work with on emergency response, recall programs, and increasingly we're doing a lot of work with EVs and electrical storage systems, logistics, and collections. Calder Recycle does not operate any of our facilities. We don't run any trucks. There are a lot of people who work, as I would say, in battery recycling. So the hard tech, the metallurgy, the shredding. Calder Recycle is a non-asset operating integrator. We work in battery recycling. So the ecosystem approach, really getting the batteries from where they are safely recycled. We collected over 9.8 million pounds of consumer batteries in 2024. I want to talk about three things today: end of life versus damage, how they're different and why you need to handle them differently and understand them. Storage and shipping, and really the storage and shipping really comes into play because of the degree to which it impacts the fire codes. So starting off with damaged and defective batteries. So really what's the difference between them? Because at the end of the day, you can't handle them the same way. There are very specific safety concerns and differences with them. There are different shipping regulations. And then ultimately what this means is that you need different operating plans to handle both of them. So the first thing that we've got to do when we're talking about our damaged batteries versus our end-of-life batteries is we have to equip our employees to be able to identify these two different types of the same battery, both lithium ion, both the UN3480 or UN3481, but very important distinctions in when it's damaged and when it's end-of-life. And there's not a lot of great guidance out there. There's some resources I'm going to share here, but ultimately it is up to the person who is handling the battery and shipping the battery to make that distinction. One of the good resources that is out there is a lithium ion battery recycling safety advisory put out by PHMSA. PHMSA is the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration, one of the administrations within the Department of Transportation. QR code to it's on the bottom right of your screen. If you want this slide deck, feel free to message Angelina or myself via the chat and I can get it over to you. So this is a good resource. So what does the DOT say a damaged battery is? How do they say that we identify it? Well, first off, if the manufacturer recalls it and says that there's a safety related issue with it that can lead to thermal runaway. So if you go to the CPSC website or you just Google CPSC recalls, you can see a long list of batteries, including some by relatively well-known entities that have been recalled in the last couple of years, quite a few large recalls this year. Batteries that have leaked or vented. So as we saw in that picture, that lithium ion battery would have popped the top off of it and the jelly roll. So the wound up inside part of the battery was popped out. Batteries that have been subject to damage but can't be diagnosed. So if it's beat up, some of the batteries we showed early on as well. Batteries with signs of physical, mechanical damage. So swelling, relative to the battery in the original state. So that very first slide with the two on the left and right, the one on the left was the bloated battery. Probably the most common type of DDR battery is a bloated pouch cell battery. So like those used in laptops and cell phones. Very common. Discoloration of the battery casing. This can mean that there is a cell imbalance, there's off-gassing, something is causing it to change colors. Smell or corrosion. The electrolyte inside a lithium-ion battery has a slightly sweet smell. I've heard it described as juicy fruit, which I think is a pretty good description for it. If you've ever smelled a burning lithium-ion battery, that smell is cemented in your head. Loose or damaged wires. This can lead to short circuit as well. And then also known conditions of use or misuse. If somebody says, hey, this e-bike was ridden in the ocean, or this scooter was thrown in a lake, Calder Cycle is going to handle those as a damaged battery. So that cascades into how we store and ship those batteries. So I want to actually break it down into 3 different classifications here that are kind of different than from how the regulations classify them. Hard-sided end-of-life batteries like tool batteries, soft-sided end-of-life batteries like laptop and phone batteries, and then all DDR batteries. So when you're storing and shipping batteries, and this really does come into play in the fire codes that I'm going to review in a second here. So this part, so the shipping regulations are very important in understanding how you're going to store the batteries as well. Hard-sided tool batteries can be, and as long as they're not damaged, safely be stored in a unrated Gaylord of sufficient strength. Like a tri-wall, triple wall fiberboard Gaylords are oftentimes used. Laptop batteries are going to need some more protection, so an unrated steel drum, but damaged batteries need to be in what's called a packing group 1 steel drum. So that's that 1A2/X. If you see a drum that says 1A2/Y, that's a packing group 2 drum, and it can't be used to ship damaged batteries. For end-of-life batteries, whether they're hard-sided or soft-sided, there's no closure instructions required on sealing those Gaylords or drums. But for a damaged battery, you've got to use the manufacturer's closure instructions. This is important because what it means is that it's oftentimes very challenging to reuse drums for damaged batteries. So if your site is shipping damaged batteries, storing damaged batteries, and you've just got a drum that you came in from an unknown source or unknown manufacturer, you don't have the closure instructions, you cannot store batteries and ship batteries and be compliant with the shipping regulations and fire code if those batteries are damaged. Hard-sided tool batteries, along with soft-sided, as long as they're end of life, you could have a drum liner or Gaylord liner and have all of the batteries inside that inner packaging. Versus damaged batteries, you've got to have every battery individually bagged. Multiple batteries in the Gaylord is okay for end of life. Multiple batteries in the drum is okay for end of life soft-sided. For damaged batteries, though, you'll often see people be cited with DOT violations for putting multiple damaged batteries, all in an individual bag, in the same drum. You can do that if you meet 2 conditions. First off, all of the batteries are below 300 watt hours. Just for context, a laptop battery is going to be about 80 to 100 watt hours. A cell phone battery is going to be about 20 watt hours. Power tool battery is going to be about 70 to 150 watt hours. Outdoor power equipment batteries start to get over 300 watt hours. E-bike batteries generally get into 600, 800, 1,000 watt hours. If the batteries are over 300 watt hours, like an e-bike battery, so if you have a lot of damaged batteries, then you need to have a lot of drums. There's not a regulatory pathway for recycling multiple damaged e-bike batteries in the same drum. And that's an important distinction because we do see a lot of violations cited for that. They always have to be backpacked to prevent movement in transit. Movement transit can mean different things. For end of life, you don't need a specific fill material, but for damaged batteries, you do have to have a non-combustible absorbent fill material. Always, in these cases, 49 CFR training, so hazmat employee training, is required. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this. There is a very good chance that there are people on this call who think their employees are trained, but they are not trained compliantly because of 2 things. The first is, when you ship dangerous goods, you have to have function-specific training that concerns the requirements of the subchapter for the thing you are shipping. So if you've got somebody who's trained in shipping methyl ethyl ketone, or somebody who's trained in shipping bulk end-of-life batteries, but they don't have damaged battery training, that training is not compliant for that function. Just because somebody has 49 CFR training does not mean they're compliant to ship all types of batteries. The other thing is there are likely people in your facility who impact the safety of dangerous goods in transit. So supervisors, dispatchers, who don't have the training that DOT expects them to train. So those are two big areas to look at in your operation. Are my people trained in the right functions, and are all of the right people trained? It's not just the guy or gal on the forklift putting the batteries onto the truck. It's not just the person who's sealing that drum up. So want to give a brief video just because it's interesting here. So the two identical batteries burning, they're both 140 watt hour drill batteries. Battery on the left is, both batteries been burning about 10 minutes. So you can see even 10 minutes later, it's continuing to ignite. Individual cells are continuing to ignite and burn. Now on the right, you can see when shipped in proper packaging, when stored in proper packaging, you very thoroughly mitigate the risk associated with shipping. So identical batteries, one burns for 10 minutes and continues to go off, one in proper packaging that is completely contained. So when you have mixed batteries, I just want to note there are some regulatory pathways for just taking a bunch of batteries and putting them in a drum. You can't do that willy-nilly, though. You really need to understand what you're doing. Called Recycle has a product called One Drum that we partner with a lot of waste facilities to help them manage their batteries in a streamlined way. We're actually really proud of One Drum. Yesterday at the battery show in Detroit, One Drum was named the Battery Safety Technology of the Year. I'm really proud of it. It's really streamlines collection of batteries. It eliminates the need for bagging and taping and sorting at individual collection facilities. So a couple other things I want to touch on super briefly that I know Jerry's going to go on in more detail. We do see a lot of people using dunk tanks. Just be cautious that you can never be sure that putting a lithium ion battery in a brine or water is going to fully discharge it. And then burn buckets are a great idea, but I do want to caution that oily rag buckets are not made for lithium ion battery fires. And so just throwing a battery in a bucket like this, it will accumulate gas. That gas will eventually fireball and that lid will pop open. Damaged batteries, you need specific considerations for them, and because that cascades right into the fire code. The fire code gets really complicated, and I want to note a couple of things. IFC 2024 is the first international fire code revision. It's a model code, so it hasn't been implemented everywhere. It's the first code that has regulations specific to storing lithium ion batteries. So if you're going to store waste lithium ion batteries at your facilities, you do need a permit. You need a fire safety plan. You need a technical opinion report. That's for indoor storage. And you need 2-hour fire rated indoor storage areas. And you need detection and sprinklers. For outdoor storage, there are spacing requirements. However, if you're only storing at limited quantities, then you don't need the permit. You don't need the technical opinion report. You don't need the separation, and you don't need the fire suppression. So it's important to understand what limited indoor storage means. It's a great provision to allow for small scale recycling, but don't try and take advantage of that if it doesn't apply to you. So what does limited indoor storage and containers mean? It's in the IFC 320.4.1, no more than 15 cubic feet, so about 2 55-gallon drums of lithium ion batteries. You can have up to 2 containers, each not greater than 56 gallons. So it's really made to have 2 55-gallon drums of batteries. They need to be separated by 3 feet. You need to be at least 5 feet from an exit door, and they need to be open top and non-combustible or approved for battery collection. Approved for battery collection means that they can be used to ship batteries. So as long as you're compliant with the shipping regulations and you're not storing over 2 drums, then you're compliant with the emerging fire codes. Now, as I said, IFC 2024 or IFC in general, along with the IBC International Building Code, is a model code. It has not been adopted everywhere. So far, IFC 2024 has been adopted in California with amendments, in Iowa, Mississippi, Wyoming, that a number of municipalities, Denver, Knoxville, Austin, San Antonio, have adopted it. Called Recycle keeps an eye on this. It is a best practice to follow the most recent fire code in your facility, not just for code compliance reasons, but for practical safety reasons. So to sum it all up, really important to understand the difference between end of life and DDR. It's important to have a place to store batteries, a separate place for end of life from DDR. Deal with them as they come into your facility. Don't make one big pile, then deal with it later. Storing and shipping go hand in hand. have a plan for quick response. So something to do with the batteries, and Jerry's going to talk about that more in a second. Understand your local fire code, and probably most importantly, engage with your local authority having jurisdiction. That's your local fire marshal. Call them before you bring batteries into facility. Call them now if you haven't already called them. A lot of people want to try and shy away from working with your AHJ. It's the other approach that should be taken. You should engage them early on. So really appreciate the opportunity. This is my contact information. Again, if there are any questions, happy to follow them up later on, and happy to share my slides as well. So thank you so much. And with that, I will pass it over to my friend and colleague, Jerry from ReMA. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, Eric. Good afternoon, everybody. Bear with me here. Can you see my screen?
Yep, you are good to go.
All right. Bear with me. Sorry about that. And as Eric said, I'm going to expand on where he was. And one of the first things I want to tell everybody is you really need to have a plan in place. And part of that plan is your hazard assessment and making sure that you have the right PPE and tools for your workers to handle these batteries, particularly the ones that are going into thermal runaway. And Eric mentioned the smell, but you'll see other signs of thermal runaway like swelling and smoking. And, certainly that smell. We teach everybody to use their senses when they're working around these batteries. Grabbing a battery that has a potential to go into thermal runaway with bare hands is obviously wrong. Having tongs available and having other tools available for those batteries to be removed from the system is the right thing to do. And just making sure that you're paying attention to those assessments and that you're paying attention to what you're going to do.
And Jerry, you have gone on mute.
How about now? Am I doing all right?
Yep, perfect. You're back.
I had brilliant things to say. The next thing to look for is, in addition to tools, consider having a gas meter or gas detector. But I can't say enough about thermal imaging cameras. Thermal imaging cameras are going to tell you whether or not those batteries are going into thermal runaway, and if they're heating up, they're certainly going to be you're going to be able to check the piles or the conveyor systems going by to see if you're having any hot spots on those. When you're working around those batteries that are coming through. The gas detector, where we talk about smell, you will detect several gases coming from those batteries as they're going into thermal runaway. So considering that as part of your plan as well. Eric mentioned packaging. We see people using plastic buckets to package. That's the worst thing you can do. But also having a metal bucket available and having some sort of media, whether it's the type that Eric mentioned, or vermiculite or sand, in a bucket close by, so that people can put those batteries into those right away, makes a lot of sense. You don't want to be handling or dealing with a battery that is swollen and going into thermal runaway and not have a safe location for them. I like saline solution for those batteries that are involved in thermal runaway and going into propagation. Saline solution oftentimes or most times will short out the battery, and it certainly will keep them cool. But please remember, once you put them in that solution, if you pull them right back out, those batteries can create their own atmosphere and continue to burn when they're pulled back out. So they need to stay in there for a time before they're removed from that area. Please remember that propagation can result in 2,000 to 3,000 degree temperatures. So that's one of the biggest reasons you want to make sure that you have tongs and also the proper PPE available for the workers to be dealing with those. After you have removed those from the stream, you need a place to put that container, and you want that to be away from anything. You want it away from your landfill spaces. You certainly want them away from your processing facilities. So have a plan for safe storage. That storage area, you should be careful not to have it be able to be elevated in temperature from the sun. And you also should make sure that that is also fireproof, and be sure that it's well ventilated when you select that container. Some of these inexpensive metal containers work really well if you can shade them and if you can put ventilation in them. Fire suppression systems, there are a lot out there, and there are a lot of really good options, but you need to pick the option that's going to work best for you. So, do your homework and take a good look at it. I also want to say that some of the old technologies that are already there, like sprinkler systems, work well. I've seen it many times where sprinkler systems will actually keep the fire at bay until you can get help coming in to work those. But it depends on what your application is and what you're doing and where you're using it. But take a good look at that. Do some investigation and spend time with that. For your existing systems, make sure that they're functioning. Whatever you have, make sure it's going to work when you need it. There should be ongoing testing for sprinkler systems. For instance, you should be doing annual trip tests and flow tests. Even for fire hydrants, if those are on your property near your landfill and you're relying on those, if you own those hydrants, you should ensure that those are tested and maintained and exercised at least once a year, so it's working when you need it. But there are, as I said, a lot of options. If you look at the top left, those are totes. We're seeing that used in a lot of our recycling industries, where you can fill those with water and put them in and crush them with an excavator or a grapple over the fire, and those do very well at keeping the fires at bay too. There are other technologies that are being developed and are either there or almost there, X-ray, but there are other sensing technologies that can sense batteries going in the thermal runaway at early onset. So do your homework. We do have some resources available already. ReMA put the Creating a Fire Prevention guide together for management plans. And also SWANA, NWRA, and ReMA has dated the guide for establishing lithium-ion battery management practices at materials recovery facilities. And that's going to be released very soon, so please keep an eye out for that. And I think that's all I have for now. If there's any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Eric. Those were both fantastic presentations, a very important topic. And next up is our landfill safety session with our two speakers today, Bridgett Biggs and Lisa May from Rumpke. Bridgett Biggs is the Senior Corporate Safety Manager, and Lisa May is the Corporate Safety Training and Compliance Manager. Bridgett and Lisa, over to you.
Thanks. Hold on one moment. We'll get our screen up. All right. Well, first of all, thank you all for having us here. We were excited to be able to come in and talk about how we mitigate our risks at our landfills. So I think we can all agree that, landfills are constantly changing, and with that comes a unique set of hazards, right? So we have to make sure that with those hazards that change every day, that our teams are prepared and ready. So the key to safety in landfill operations isn't luck. It's something that we have to recognize those changing risks early and put in effective controls on those. At Rumpke, we manage 15 landfills, including one of the nation's largest, and that's the Rumpke Sanitary Landfill right here in Coleraine in Cincinnati. We pull in about 12,500 tons daily. And with that, we're pulling that in from external sources. So that's a lot of traffic. And that's a little different from some landfills that do pull in such large tonnages. Those may usually come in, by rail or by transfer station trucks only. Here at this landfill particularly, this is a lot of internal customers, ourselves bringing that in, and also external customers that come through. So today we're going to walk you through some of the top hazards that we face in our operations and the preventive measures that we rely on, the proactive steps we take to protect both of our employees and our customers. Top 5 hazards that we typically face, obviously, is the heavy equipment traffic, right? And the truck traffic that comes in and out. The relationship at the workplace and at that tipping area. You have to also keep in mind and make sure that your ground is always stable. And if it is unstable, what are we doing about that? You're looking at your gases and your environmental monitoring and fires. So that's the hazards that we're facing. PPE, right? Always wear the required PPE. You got to have your Class 2 vest on, safety glasses, your cut resistant gloves if you're touching the garbage, your boots 6 inches high, puncture resistant soles. We want to make sure that we're protecting our ankles and the bottoms of our feet because we don't know what's out there in our workplace trash. And some facilities actually require hard hats. And even if our facilities do not, there's facilities that we may go to that do require those. So it's PPE all the time. No excuses for that. So for us, it's traffic plans is another big area for us. So we have to have things in place with clear directions to our employees and whenever changes are made. And in some of our larger type of facilities, those changes are often. Your smaller type landfills, that might not happen for a couple of months. But larger landfills, it could be happening every month. The face is moving and changing where it goes. Clear signage is necessary. You have to have that in place. It has to guide not only our customers and our contractors, but even our employees and vendors to their final destination. I think for us, the most important signage you can have is to make sure that people that are on our sites know where they cannot be. You have to make sure that they know how to get to that workplace if that's where they're going, or get over to the shop if that's where they're going, and that we don't have them off in places that they shouldn't be. Operators must stay in constant communication with each other. In our traffic plans, our operators must be skilled in facilitating the movement at the workplace and at our tipping areas. Landfill employees are always made aware. So if that landfill every morning in our debriefs, we talk about where everything's going to be that day, if changes are being made, so that they know, what's taking place on that landfill. Again, these are just examples of signs that we have in place that we've been utilizing. And a lot of it is making sure that not only our customers, internal and external, they know the minimum spacing, they know the minimum requirements that they can be away from their own personal vehicle and even our equipment, and direction, obviously, of where to go. We look at these areas daily. So we want to make sure that we're inspecting and conducting and identifying and correcting our issues every day. So we do our inspections around our workplace and look for uneven ground. Operators and even our trucks, they drive slowly and cautiously on our haul roads and our ramps and on the workplace. We require our drivers that come in, and they're trying to alert us if there's an unsafe ramp, if we've had issues with maybe the service is developing a soft spot. They're also trying to help alert us to let us know that those things are going on. And then signage. We always need to make sure that we have signage. Where are we going to tarp and untarp? Where is everybody cleaning out? We do not want them doing that on the workplace because it is dangerous. It is fast moving. And we want to make sure that they are out of the way doing those types of tasks before they exit our facility or before they back in to dump their loads. Training is another key piece to this. We do our daily huddles and we discuss the day's operational plan. We have monthly safety meetings to stay refreshed in our safety practices. We have emergency drills. So what do we do in case there is an explosion? What do we do in case there is a fire, even tornadoes and things like that? So we stay up on our drills. And then we have landfill gas detection systems that we use. We do daily reads on those at our facilities to make sure that we don't have an issue. And then certain folks that are out and about on that landfill are required to wear those gas detection systems. So, and then it's observations. Our supervisors are constantly out observing our employees, making sure that we're doing things safely and that we're doing the things procedurally the way we need to do those. And then with those observations, that gives us an opportunity to follow up train, not just with the specific employee that we're coaching, but big picture that we're taking this back to all of our employees, that at the next meeting that we're talking about the things that we see in our observations that could help us to ensure that we don't have those incidents. And a hazard analysis, right? Job hazard analysis. This has probably been one of the most effective tools. And I think Jerry had mentioned that in his slides that he was talking about. So I'm gonna take it a little bit further as to what we do. We actually do the job hazard analysis. And we have these already in place for a lot of the simple tasks that are pretty regular tasks that people do. It does provide us with better communication and more awareness. It gets our employees involved because they actually help us develop these JHAs. They sit down, they're the ones telling us how they perform this work. And then we're able to provide to them the common job hazards that they're facing, you know, what the exposures they have, and then the steps they can take to keep from having those incidents. And I want to say to date, we probably just in the landfill line of business alone already have up to 20 or 30 JHAs developed for those individuals. This keeps us safer at the workplace. It keeps us safer around the gas wells and during equipment movement. So a job hazard analysis has been one of the most effective tools we've been able to help us stay ahead of the risks at the landfill. Ooh, landfill gas, that's, you know, obviously another issue that we have. That all of us have. We actually implemented using the black line system here probably at the beginning of the year, closer to the beginning of the year we used that. This is a really good detection system that we like, and I just wanted to mention it here. If you're having landfills that have maybe a higher H2S content, or areas to where you have a higher gas content and you have people that may be performing solo work or contractors that are coming in that perform solo work in areas to where there could be obvious issue that you would need to make sure that you were aware of instantly, this provides live monitoring. And what we really liked about this system too is that if there's an inactivity, there's a man down system and it is monitored by a control room. So there's live monitoring, you get real-time readings when they're out there, and that you get the readings off of their device, and it also offers that, like I said, that protection device. There's text messaging, emails, things like that that get sent out from that unit. So we have really enjoyed using that black line system.
And hello, yes, I'm Bridgett Biggs, and I'm just going to talk very briefly on the fire risk that we have in landfills. Last month, about mid to maybe late September, our landfill, in Coleraine, did experience a fire event. It started in the working phase. We couldn't drill down to what the source of that fire was, but our assumption, obviously, as Eric and Jerry had talked about, are the lithium ion batteries. I know that we've experienced many smaller fires on a daily or weekly basis that relate to those lithium ion batteries. So we figured that that was the culprit, but that's the culprit of a lot of fires in the industry right now. So we were fortunate enough that this was extinguished quickly. It did not spread. The one thing, it did get a lot of attention. It had entered into the area that we keep in our landfill where we have tire shreds. So that black smoke that you're going to see in the next slide, you can go ahead, there we go. The black smoke is what you see. It could be seen for miles upon miles. So obviously we got a lot of attention about that. So this is one of the biggest risks we have now. What I will say is our heavy equipment operators are thoroughly trained on what to do in the event of a fire. I think our equipment operators, as with a lot of landfills in the industry, they experience the small, maybe some smoke or some heat that they see. They experience those on a daily basis, most times, multiple times a day. And what their responsibility is to do is they smother that, right? They use the trash to go ahead and push on top of what they see. But we want to make sure in the event of any type of big fire event that they understand exactly what their roles are. So, anytime we have a fire event, whether it be in a landfill or in our MRF, we have a debrief after the event and we involve the fire department. Because we want to hear what they feel we did right and where maybe we could improve. And we want to talk about some of the challenges that they had. So some of the post-incident action items that we experienced just in this most recent fire. Early notification is key, right? Time is critical. And the earlier that we notify the emergency personnel, the better. In each one of our fire events, that is something that we are working toward. As I spoke about, when the operators, when they handle those smaller little fires and they push the material over it, they get comfortable. They feel like they know what they're doing. And there are times when maybe they don't notify leadership or call 911 when they should. So that was some feedback that we got here. But we want to make sure that our operators, our scale attendants, we want to make sure that they know to immediately report smoke, odors, or abnormal heat on the working face to the leadership team. We always emphasize using radio or direct phone contacts. One thing that the fire department, we meet quarterly with our fire department, we bring them on to the landfill. We take them around the landfill. Landfill is a construction site. It's ever changing. It can look one way today, and then next Monday it can look completely different. So we provide our fire departments with update site maps and access plans. So they need to know where the active face is. They need to know where the access roads are. They need to know where our water sources are going to be in the event of a fire. And in this event, luckily, the fire department knew exactly where to go. We had identified a point person. That is imperative. You have to have someone that is trained within the team, within your team, your internal team, to escort and communicate directly with the emergency personnel. As the fire department was requesting additional operators, additional water sources, anything of that nature, we were able to in real time communicate with our team, and they were able to get up on the landfill and make sure that the fire department had what they needed to do, what was needed to put that fire out. It's important that the fire department knows where our methane wells are, where our gas headers are, the leachate lines, any type of high voltage areas. And luckily in this event, they knew exactly where those places were on the landfill. So as I mentioned, holding quarterly coordination meetings with the fire department is imperative. Water truck readiness, we always make sure that we verify at least one water truck is functional and accessible at all times, including after hours. This event happened on a Sunday evening at 6 o'clock, when we were bare bone minimum on manpower. So we want to ensure that those water trucks are parked and accessible in a location with keys secured but available to supervisors, which this was. In this event, we had the fire department they had makeshift water tanks that they had made, and we were shipping water up to them. So pre-planned routes and turning radiuses for the fire trucks and the tankers, imperative, super important to have. Excessive water can create leachate and runoff issues, as we all know, and we're very regulated on our landfill. So we want to avoid using water directly on buried fires that can trap the heat and spread subsurface burning. And this is where we want to use a combination of smothering the fire and then using controlled water application, which in our debrief with the fire department, they did say, kudos to the team. We didn't put the fire out. The local team did, and that was them smothering that fire. So it's truly a team effort. So we want to make sure that you're building those relationships with your fire department. Next, please. And then finally, for me, the NWRA has teamed up with Woodsy the Owl to launch a major campaign to help educate the public on the dangers of the lithium-ion batteries that we spoke about within each one of our presentations. So kudos to them. We can only control what we can control. That's what we say internally here at Rumpke. We can educate the public as much as we can, but we have to be ready to face those dangers if they should occur in our facilities.
And then finally, we live by a safety excellence mindset. So safety isn't luck. It is the result of a mindset. And it's built on quality training, quality observations, a culture of consistency, predictability, and accountability. It's awareness. It's our operators keeping their head on a swivel, fixing issues when they see them, or report the ones that they can't fix. It's consistency. Consistency that our leadership leads by example. Consistency in our messaging through our training that we utilize our SharePoint space for. We use alerts and things like that, but you have to be consistent in the inspections that you do. You have to be consistent in the backing procedures that you use. You can't take shortcuts. It's accountability. We ask our employees, if you see something, say something. We have in-depth near miss investigations, as some people would for accident investigations. So we take near miss and we ensure that we do strict root cause on those, so that we can try to predict how not for this to happen again, right? Put in great corrective actions. Continuous learning, we stay engaged. We keep our employees engaged. We're constantly coaching and installing quality corrective actions where we can. And then lastly, it's a shared responsibility. It's the commitment of our employees not to take shortcuts. It's the commitment that if you lose sight of something, you stop. You don't just keep going, and they hold each other accountable. We also involve our employees in not only our JHA development, but we involve them in all levels. They lead meetings. They may even do some observations themselves. So with that, that's all we have in how we at Rumpke try to mitigate our risks on our landfills.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that great presentation, Lisa and Bridgett, and giving some great insights into how Rumpke deals with some of the issues that they've encountered when it comes to safety. Finally, we have Kristen Oldendorf, Senior Director of Public Policy and Communications at SWANA, discussing how the association is addressing safety issues. Kristen?
Yes, thank you. I don't seem to have the share screen feature anymore.
It may be under more.
No. Okay, it's up here now. Thank you. Okay. Yes, hi everyone. So I'm Kristen with SWANA. So for anyone who's not as familiar with SWANA, just a quick overview. We are a professional association for those in the waste and resource management industry. So we have 47 chapters throughout North America, as well as 7 technical divisions focusing on different parts of the industry. So we have a really diverse membership: public sector, private sector, nonprofits, students. Majority of our members are public sector. Just to note that I was a member of SWANA for a long time when I worked for the city of Baltimore. So I kind of know firsthand all the great work that SWANA does for its members. So we have 4 key pillars that are shown here. Safety is number 1, of course. And I'll talk a bit here about all we're doing around safety. We are also really focused on sustainability and waste as a resource. We really think of our members as stewards of public health and the environment and all that that means. We're promoting professional opportunities. SWANA is pretty well known for our training programs, especially our manager of landfill operations, known as MOLO. But we have many other trainings as well and certifications. Probably many of you are SWANA certified, so that's great. And delivering value to our members. So when we talk about safety, we really think about it as being holistic throughout an organization, right? Not like off on its own and being its own thing in its own office, but really being part of all parts of the industry, parts of an organization. So at SWANA, we work on safety through advocacy, through training, through communications, networking. It kind of underrides all that we do, including our events. And our new event, Archon, I'll talk more about, but we'll have lots around safety there as well. So here, just high level, are a few of our safety resources, and this QR code will actually take you right to our safety resource page. So that includes some SWANA resources as well as some outside organization resources. So we have OSHA on there and other government organizations as well. If you know of a great safety resource that you think would be good to share, we're always looking for those. So feel free to send that my way, and we'd be happy to get it listed on the website as well. As I said, we have the Safety First newsletter, the I Am SWANA newsletter, and the SWANA courses and certifications. Safety First is our weekly newsletter. This goes out every Sunday so that you have it ready in your inbox Monday morning. Here's a recent example of one we did around forklift safety, but the topics vary week to week. And this goes to SWANA members, and then you can download a poster, which is the second image here. And people like to post these posters in the facilities. I see them a lot when going on site visits. And we do have them available in Spanish as well as French Canadian, so you can print them in different languages there. And we also have a blog post. So, sometimes these topics are more in depth than you can fit on a poster. So you can go to the blog and read more about it and get more information there as well. We also have the 5 to Stay Alive resources. And these are on different topics. It's, you can see here, it's just a one pager, really quick. You can post it throughout the facility. This one that is shown is about landfills, but we also have other facilities, MRFs, compost facilities, as well as on the collection side. The safety pledge is really important. Again, this QR code will take you right to the safety pledge. You can fill it out online, or you can, we actually have a postcard that you can print if you want to take it out to your sites, or if you have an event happening, you can have people sign it there. And this is really meant to be a pledge for everyone to just stop and think for a minute and make this pledge for themselves. You can kind of see here that we have this available in various languages as well on the website. And many of our safety ambassadors, as I mentioned, we have 47 chapters, and those chapters have safety ambassadors that really drive safety within the organization. So a lot of times the chapter ambassadors or safety committees will actually have hauler outreach events where they'll go out to landfill usually and actually hand out the card with the pledge to everyone who's coming into the site that day. So really trying to get out this information. Okay, so we recently renewed our alliance with OSHA. So this is an alliance between SWANA, the National Waste and Recycling Association, and OSHA. This had been in place previously. We just renewed it for another 3 years, and it's really a commitment to share and develop resources, attend and present at each other's events, and really have that kind of direct connection. So it's really helpful. OSHA's been very good about sending emails and updates and reminders, which I can then easily send out and share with our members. So we'll be working together to develop some new safety resources on key topics. Battery safety is one of those key topics, as some of the other presenters have talked about, and those were really great presentations. So thank you for the other presenters. It's helpful as well to see the role technology is playing in finding some solutions here to many of these safety issues. So some of the things we're doing around safety, we have a SWANA lithium-ion battery work group that started up last year, and it has 3 sub-work groups to really look holistically at this. So we're focused on the advocacy as well as communications and outreach to the public. And, we know despite our best efforts, batteries are still getting to where they shouldn't be. So we have one of our sub-work groups is really focused on that on-site safety and how to get your facility and your staff prepared to prevent fires. And then here's just a few other notes we've done at the state level as well as the federal level around battery advocacy. The EPA has been doing a lot on batteries. There's an EPR. So far it's in development, but they're coming up with an EPR framework around batteries. They've also been looking at collections best practices, communication best practices, and really looking at national guidance around batteries. We've also been working on our SWANA technical policies. These technical policies are available on our website, and we'll be updating and creating some new ones focused around batteries and safety. We did create technical policies on extended producer responsibility, as well as guiding principles on EPR last year, and that has been really helpful for our work on battery EPR as well. So those technical policies are available on the website if anyone wants to see them. They're really good resources. Okay, in addition to batteries, we know that there's other products that are causing issues. And this, where we heard directly from our members, things like compressed gas cylinders, even marine flares, fireworks. There's a lot of other products that are ending up in the back of collection vehicles that are then starting fires or causing explosions. We had a webinar series on this earlier this year. NAMA and NSAC worked with us on that, so you can check out those. So because of this problem, earlier this year, we issued a statement calling for coordination on product safety and responsible end-of-life management. A lot of times the problem is there just are not good end-of-life options. There's nowhere to take these materials, or there's very limited options for where to take them. So we really want to work with policymakers and producers to find more solutions here and to raise awareness among the public. So you can see at the bottom here, this is just one quote from the statement, but it is longer than this. And based on this statement, we developed a longer op-ed that several organizations signed on to, and we got this published in many of the industry publications, and we'll be continuing to push this out. So if anyone's interested in signing on or learning more, please feel free to contact me, but we want to continue to raise awareness here. Okay, RCon is SWANA's brand new event, will take place next month in Columbus, Ohio. So we're really excited. This is really informed by member feedback, lots of new things to expect here. So when we think about this event, it's kind of like more than an event, it's an experience. So we want everyone to build your own adventure, have your own experience here. There's lots of ways to do that. So in the exhibit hall, we have like over 190 exhibitors now. So lots around safety there. You'll see safety technologies, services, equipment, lots to explore there. We'll have different tours of landfill, the Rumpke MRF, a PFAS facility, the back of house, the convention center. So lots to explore there as well around safety and how that happens in all of those facilities. So a little more hands-on learning. And those tours will actually be available throughout the week. So they're not just all like on one day, but every day, if you wanted to take a tour, you probably could. We'll also have lots of technical sessions, roundtable discussions, poster sessions, so many different ways to learn and develop and gather resources. We also are offering SWANA trainings at RCon. So again, we talk about safety quite a bit in our training, so those are good resources. And our safety committee and our battery committees will be meeting in person at RCon. And I mentioned NWRA, we have a joint safety committee meeting with the NWRA safety committee meeting. So there'll be lots of conversations there and resources happening. So thank you. Feel free to get in touch with me about any of this. This QR code goes directly to my LinkedIn. And this will take you again to the SWANA resource page, but we'd love to have all of you come to RCon. Still time to sign up. And please check out our safety resources. And if you know of any great resources to share, we look forward to hearing those as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for talking about SWANA and all that's great work that it's doing. I'd like to invite all the speakers to unmute and get back on video just to have a couple of minutes of questions from some of the attendees. We actually had a really good question come up just a few minutes ago, excuse me, asking, with the advancements in AI-powered equipment, what are your thoughts on the integration of AI into the safety world? Who'd like to take that question or start taking that question?
I mean, one of the things that we're seeing, Angelina, is an increase in the ability to automate some advanced detection processes. Thermal imaging cameras have been around for a long time, but when you start to integrate thermal imaging cameras, for example, with things like AI, then you can start to detect increases in heat over specific rates of time. You can couple that with gas meters, and you can start to really triangulate in for early and immediate detection and response. The one thing that I would encourage everybody to consider is, how are you going to integrate this into your operating plan for what your people do every day? right? So it's not just about how are we going to leverage AI. How are we going to leverage AI and our operators in order to make the entire operating area more safe?
Excellent. Good point. So what's the most important information that a garbage truck driver should know about batteries? There was a comment that it's a challenge to know what gets thrown into the carts and the hopper.
I'll grab it. You know, it's a real challenge because you can't see them, obviously. But you know, we need to just pay close attention to any indication at all that you have a truck fire. And you also need to know what the local regulations are around how you deal with those. There are some regions that don't want drivers to simply pump off a load someplace. There are other regions that say, yeah, that's okay. And I'm reminded of one, I think it was up in the Pacific Northwest, where a driver's in a lot of trouble because it ended up being a forest fire and everything. So check with local agencies, make sure you're training your drivers. We trained our drivers to squeeze the load, go to a safe location, and when the fire department was prepared to pull, then they had the hose out. That's when you eject the load so that they're ready to go. But again, watching that, and I think that's about the best we can do. I know that there's technology out there that's being developed and is almost there where they claim they're going to be able to sense batteries in the recycle bins as they're being dumped. So that would be a huge help for us.
Hey, Angelina, it's David. Can I add something to that?
Sure.
Jerry, I agree with what you said 100%, and congratulations to all the speakers for the great job they did. I actually provided safety training yesterday to a hauling company, and we talked about fire prevention in the trucks. And I think we have to get back to basics to some extent with the drivers and remind them about what the procedure is for if they smell smoke, making sure that they emphasize that the fire extinguisher is working before they take the truck out. You know, make sure it's in the pre-trip, make sure they're trained about how to use a fire extinguisher. Not everybody is. And as you said, make sure that if they dump the load, they do it in a safe place away from persons or property, because we don't want the fire spreading and causing property damage, or God forbid, somebody getting hurt or killed, as happened on the West Coast a few years ago.
Mhm. Yep, exactly. Bridget and Lisa, how do you get everybody on board with the same safety mindset?
Yeah, actually, that's what I closed with. It's
Very
awareness,
good.
right? It was awareness, proactive awareness, consistency, accountability, and continuous learning and shared responsibility. It's constant. Really, the consistency and accountability is probably the biggest piece of that.
Do you face any challenges with that that strategy that you presented?
Oh, absolutely.
They-
Yeah, they are. So yeah, it's a culture change, right? And it's something that it's going to take a little more time to turn a big ship. But once you get it there and you start getting the buy-in to it, and we do that through, like I said, consistent messaging. We're always doing the right messaging. When we show up the same way we expect our employees to show up. We're also, working with our management group and making sure that they understand certain things. We put them through courses, understanding safety, how to coach, and how to put together great corrective actions. So yes, it's definitely a learning curve for everyone, but we're getting there. We're making a lot of traction with it, so we're pretty excited about where we're headed.
Great, fantastic.
And Angelina, if I could just add, making sure that that safety culture goes to and through the organization, having the leadership of the organization, the ownership of the company or organization. Rumpke is an ideal example of that. You see safety as a concern from the very top, from the owners of the company, just at the top, but making sure that, an owner of the company or an executive doesn't personal protective equipment and doesn't use it.
Great. Kristen, what led up to the alliance with Ocean and WRA?
Yeah, thanks. Great question. So I think if people aren't aware, OSHA has alliances with a lot of industries, and they on the website there's a lot of resources there about reports out from the different alliances and resources. So I'd encourage you to check that out. So we recognize that, we're all working on safety. Safety is number one with, all these organizations. So really trying to combine forces and leverage our combined focus on safety to develop some resources together. So it's been good having that kind of direct communication. OSHA actually hosted an alliance forum about a month ago that I attended. So that was an in-person event where you got to connect directly with OSHA staff and hear, kind of from them where they were on developing resources, where they are in regulations, things like that. So it's helpful to have that kind of direct line of communication and really work together to advance safety in the industry.
Right. Excellent. And one last question for the battery side. Somebody had asked, does saline work for lithium versus lithium ion battery? My understanding is that lithium ion uses water and lithium will explode.
All right, so a couple of things to kind of clarify here on some things. So just from a nomenclature standpoint, so lithium ion batteries are generally going to be your rechargeable lithium ion batteries. So drill batteries, EV batteries, lithium batteries, or sometimes called lithium metal batteries, or lithium primary batteries, are single-use batteries. They're found in coin cell button cells, like your key fob. They're found in AA, AAA. They'll be silver and blue and say lithium on them, and they're pretty expensive. Or there'll be like an A123, a weird goofy shaped battery you put in your door, or other types of things that need power for a long time, smoke detectors. Lithium ion battery fires are a class B. You use a class AB fire extinguisher. It is not a metal fire. A lithium ion battery fire, it does not need a class D fire extinguisher. Generally, the fire you are fighting with a lithium ion battery fire is a class A fire, because the lithium ion battery catches the other stuff on your tipping floor on fire. It catches the stuff in the back of your load on fire. So the big catastrophic fire isn't the battery fire. It's the paper, it's the plastic, it's the other stuff that got caught on fire. You are not going to put out a lithium ion battery fire with any fire extinguisher, because it contains all three sides of the fire triangle on its own. So generally, fire safety professionals are looking to let them burn, suffocate them, cover them up, get the things around them wet so that the fires don't spread. A lithium, if a aggregator were to have a large quantity of lithium primary batteries that caught fire, that would be a class D fire, because the lithium metal inside the batteries, and even when those batteries are used, there's still going to be some metallic, just Li, inside those batteries. What happens in a one-time use lithium metal batteries, you start with just lithium. It combines with oxygen. It has a chemical reaction that creates a current. When it's done, there's no more metallic lithium left. So generally speaking, waste lithium metal, lithium primary batteries don't have lithium metal in them either. So, understanding the difference between those two, you probably don't need to have class D fire extinguishers for those. Regardless, though, the main thing that you are looking for is early detection and separation. Most lithium ion battery fires, or lithium metal battery fires, lithium based battery fires, the best thing you could do is isolate it, let it burn, cover it, contain it, get it outside, get it into a burn bucket, get it into saline. With the question directly about does saltwater work, if you can reach the terminals, you can discharge any battery with a conductive current. The problem that you have is that the cross section of copper in most batteries is so small that it corrodes before it discharges. So I would really caution anybody without specific experience in discharging batteries in a brine. If you get a bunch of batteries and you throw them in a brine and you think that they're done, you're going to have a bad day, because most of them will corrode. They won't get current flow anymore, and they'll still have juice in them. So don't create an additional hazard by thinking you're safe by brining batteries.
Great information. And you know what? I'm gonna do one more on the confined spaces. So Will, how do you determine when a confined space rescue team needs to be on site as a standby?
Right. And I was just typing a response to that question.
Saw that.
It depends if it is a permitted confined space, you definitely have to have a rescue plan in effect. There's an old adage when seconds count, first responders are only minutes away, and that's the reason why you have to have a rescue plan in place that's ready to go if you're in a permitted confined space. So the plan should definitely address that. It could be as simple as having a tripod and a harness on the worker who's in the tank so that he or she could be quickly extricated from the confined space if there were a problem. But anytime there is um, a specific permitted confined space, you need to have that rescue plan, and the rescue plan should or will has to definitely address that. In most cases, though, it's if you have that 3-person team, the person who's in the trench, the person who's or in the permanent confined space, the person who's doing the monitoring, and the supervisor, that will be enough.
Great, thank you. I appreciate all you guys for giving some insight on this discussion with some of the questions that we've had, some of the questions that were presented. And let me just share my screen again real quick. So again, I appreciate all the speakers, all the attendees being here today. We hope that you've had some valuable insights to take away to your organizations. We've had great discussions on fire safety, landfill safety, even some safety culture and lockout, tagout, and confined spaces, and some information from SWANA and their safety program. So it's been a great webinar. So I hope that if you are attending SWANA's Archon in November at Columbus, we will be there, booth number 301. And I would like to take some time to just thank our sponsors, our platinum sponsor, Vizia, as well as our gold sponsors, Meridian Waste and Waste and Recycling Workers Week. We will be in booth 301, so if you feel like coming by and chatting with us, we always like to talk to you guys. Feel free. And then also, we are having a collection safety webinar on December 4th from 3 to 4:15 Eastern Time. The QR code is there. There was a link to the event provided in the chat right at the beginning if anybody needs us to send it, and we'll also send out reminders for this as well. Just let us know. And the recording of this webinar will be available for online at the Waste Advantage website within the next week. And feel free to reach us with any questions in the meantime. Thank you so much for attending. Have a great afternoon.